Yo, Diddy was fighting the fight with
Hairstylist.
Welcome back, y'all. It's your man, Cashmere, California, and I am finally back with the beautiful Mrs. California. Got her back. And this is week 3 of the Diddy trial. Week 3, and it is just as explosive as week 2. Hope y'all been tuning in. Let's get it going. Let's not waste any time. But first, in case this is your first time watching, let's go over the charges.
He's being charged with sex trafficking, racketeering conspiracy, or RICO, and transportation to engage in prostitution.
Yes. So, real quick, before we get into week 3, how do you feel that the prosecution is doing in proving any of these charges?
I feel like they're doing a good job now that we are starting to hear some additional testimony. Week 1, I did not see RICO happening.
Right.
But with this testimony about Kid Cudi, the testimony from Capricorn Clark, the testimony from Mia, we're starting to get some additional information.
It's getting thick. It's getting thick.
And so now breaking down some of the RICO elements. For them to prove RICO, you have to prove that it was a criminal enterprise that existed.
Right.
The individual was involved in or affected interstate or foreign commerce. So that's, making money across state lines or taking money across state lines. That the defendant was associated with the enterprise or was employed by the enterprise. So obviously we know that the enterprise that we're referring to is Bad Boy Entertainment, Bad Boy, the entire corporate umbrella, right? But the RICO elements that have to be proven, you have to find that the defendant was engaged in some kind of violent crime like murder, kidnapping, arson, extortion, which we are going to get into from some of the witnesses this week.
Yep.
Fraudulent crimes like bribery, mail fraud, wire fraud, securities fraud. Or other drug dealing, embezzlement, money laundering, witness tampering, which we will again get into, or dealing in an obscene matter.
Right.
Which I think that they might try to tap into that one as well, considering that Diddy was threatening to release videos of different sexual encounters during these freak-offs and things like that, kind of using it as a revenge porn kind of thing.
Right.
So far, it seems like the prosecution is doing a good job calling witnesses that are going to help with these RICO charges. Of course, we already know that they've done a good job with the sex trafficking because they've talked about forcing Cassie and other women into some of these freak-offs. And then, of course, the transportation to engage in prostitution. We've heard from quite a few of these male escorts that they've flown across state lines to participate in the freak-offs.
Right.
So I think they're doing pretty good.
Yeah, and just to be clear, they also have to show that there's a pattern of this. They can't just do it one time.
Right.
And it's actually twice in a 10-year period. Yeah. So that's why, if you want to know why even we keep bringing you like the years, like this was in 2004, this is in 2011. It has to be in a condensed time frame of 10 years.
Right.
All you got to do is prove 2. And like you said, they're on their way to proving multiple.
Right.
So for anybody thinking like, oh, the RICO is kind of like a reach, we felt like that in the beginning as well. But after the prosecution laid that foundation, it's getting there. It's getting there. All right, so day 10, we begin with the former assistant Capricorn Clark.
Right.
She testified that she had been held against her will multiple times, which that goes to
the kidnapping.
Yeah.
One
of those times we talked about it, or I talked about it when my beautiful wife wasn't here, about the Kid Cudi incident.
Right.
So she was saying, alleging that she was forced to leave her house and take Ruben and Diddy, Ruben's one of the security guards, to Kid Cudi's house. And according to her, Diddy was threatening to actually Kid Cudi.
Right. So she said that she was in her apartment. He showed up to her apartment one day, banging on the door. She opened the door. He had a gun in his hand. And he said, "We're going to kill Cudi." So she's like, "I don't want to have no parts of that." He was like, "I don't care what you want." He held her at gunpoint and said, "Get in the car." So they get in the car. They go over to Cudi's. The security guard gets out, goes inside the house. So then Diddy gets out the car, and Capricorn Clark calls Cassie on this burner phone that she had previously bought her, and she's like, it's about to go down. They trying to kill Cudi. Don't come home. So then Diddy walks back up to the car, and he's like, who you talking to on the phone? So then he grabs the phone, he calls Cassie back, and so it's a whole thing. And Kid Cudi's like, what? Not at my house. So then Cudi is on his way back home, and they're like, you're about to get yourself. Do not go back home.
Hold on, but you didn't say, how did Cudi find out? Because you said they called Cassie.
Cudi was with Cassie.
There it is.
And that's the problem. Diddy didn't want Cassie seeing anyone else, though Diddy and Cassie had been broken up at this time. Right. But he was still feeling like she was his possession, and he didn't want her seeing anybody else, and so he flipped out about the whole Kid Cudi thing.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one thing, and a lot of men have that whole, like, once mine, always mine, which is wrong, gentlemen, which is wrong. But to that level, like, I'll take you off this planet.
Right.
And it's like, you know, no shade, but you ain't been treating this girl right at all.
Right.
You haven't even been treating her like you really even like her like that. You got a lot of other women. You got the world at your fingertips. If you do, and you get caught, you can kind of lose everything.
Right.
I mean, case in point.
Right. And I mean, so to that point, so Capricorn Clark had said during her testimony that they rode in a black Cadillac Escalade to Kid Cudi's house.
That's important.
And then
the black Escalade is important. Suburban Escalade.
No, it was Escalade.
The black Escalade is important.
Yeah. So then the next day, we hear one of the LAPD police officers who initially responded to the situation at Kid Cudi's house after the car has been set on fire.
That was Christopher Ignacio.
Yes. And he said that when he pulled up, he saw a black Cadillac Escalade driving away from the front of the house as he approached. And then he saw that same Escalade pass back by 15 minutes later.
Yeah.
So then he runs the plates and determines that the vehicle was registered to Bad Boy Productions. So if you ain't had nothing to do with it, why, you know, are you in the immediate vicinity of a house and stuff like that?
And the defense had the nerve to try and somehow want to pull up the area, the view of the area, to show that, well, maybe it was like a dead end in that area, so that's why they were just circling back. Really?
Right.
Really? Okay.
Right. But the defense's job is to create reasonable doubt.
Poke those holes. Yep.
They're going to do everything to make at least one juror possibly consider that there is some alternate scenario.
Right.
But back to Capricorn Clark.
Yeah.
So in addition to the situation with Cudi, she said that on her very first day of employment with Diddy back in 2004, he and a member of his security took her to a park at night in the dark after finding out that she had previously worked for Suge Knight, who was one of Diddy's rivals from way, way, way back. They told her that if anything became an issue relating to her past employment with Suge Knight, that he would have to kill her. So again, this is threatening murder, one of the RICO elements.
One of the predicates, yep.
So we don't have anything, obviously, yet that has come out alleging that he has committed any murder, but at least this is a threat of murder. Yep. And not the first, and was not the last.
Right. That's two threats with the same person.
Right. And that is a theme.
Yep.
That we saw. We with the Kid Cudi incident, Diddy told Cassie and Capricorn Clark that they needed to convince Cudi not to say that Diddy was involved, and if they couldn't convince him not to say that Diddy was involved, he was going to kill all of them.
Yep.
She also detailed another murder threat by Diddy's team. Diddy had some jewelry that was on loan from Jacob the Jewelry, some really expensive jewelry.
Right.
And she was, I guess, in charge of monitoring the jewelry or making sure it didn't get stolen or something like that. So they accused her of stealing the jewelry because apparently it came up missing.
Right.
She said that she was subjected to 5 days worth of lie detector tests. And they told her repeatedly that if she failed the lie detector test, they were going to have to, quote, throw her in the East River.
River.
So again, you
Come
do
on.
something that steps a toe out of line. You do something that potentially makes us look bad. You do something that we otherwise don't like.
Yeah.
You're a goner.
Right.
In the East River.
In the East River.
In the East River.
And so again, back to like how the prosecution laid the foundation. Everybody was like, well, why is Cassie going first? You know, I mean, she's kind of like their star witness. Why have her in the beginning? Not just because she's 8.5 months pregnant at the time, but also if you look at how the direction that they're going in, let's first show you how he treated the person that he was in relationship with. Like, let's show you that trend of violence, that person. Let's get you away from the superstar and let's get you to the person, right? And then now, when we bring these other people that were more connected to the superstar aura of the person, watch those same traits be called out that you heard about in his personal life, to show you this is a consistent theme of his. This isn't new. It's not some person that wants money. This is not some person that's just wishes they had their job back, or he didn't get them a deal, or he dropped them from the label. This is none of that. This is just him. Yeah. Whether you're his girlfriend, whether you're his girlfriend's mom, whether you're an assistant, this is how he is.
Yeah. What kind of along the lines, though, of the defense poking holes in the prosecution's case, they keep asking everyone, if you knew that this is just how he is, why are you continuing to surround yourself with him? Why do you keep going back to him, Cassie, after he has beat you all of these times and thrown you around and called you all these names and proved to you that you are not the one person that he's in a relationship with? Why do you keep going back?
Which is a great question.
They asked Capricorn Clark the same thing. She was employed with Bad Boy Enterprises from 2004 to 2018. Yeah. Why do you keep going back after you were threatened with murder on the very first day of your employment? But I think we all kind of know, and it's we're saying the quiet part out loud here, is that a lot of these people want to be in the industry. A lot of these people want to be involved. Yeah. So unfortunately, a lot of these people are willing to take threats and abuse and everything else if it means that someone on the level of Diddy is going to elevate their career. Now that begs the question, is your career that important to you where you're willing to be thrown into the East River in pursuit of a career? Is it that important to you?
Right, and do you take it seriously? Like, some stuff can be like, I remember when I won't use his name, but one of the rappers from the band said that Diddy threatened him one time and said that he would like shut off the lights, like shut off the power on every house on his block in his neighborhood, and basically creep up on him. And it's like he said the threat is so grand, but it's like, you know how rich this dude is. It's like, you really start thinking like, man, he probably could do that. Like but some stuff is so big. Quick, I had a conversation and I was equating this to kind of a mixture of the military and The Devil Loves Prada. Because in the military, you've accepted a certain amount of, this isn't going to be pleasurable. Right. I'm going to get yelled at. I'm going to get this. I'm going to be told when to do this and when to do that. But there's a certain amount of that discomfort that you accept. You don't know everything that's going to happen, but you accept it. The Devil Loves Prada is a similar thing. It's like you're an assistant for some really powerful person. You expect, they're probably going to be rude. They're probably going to be dismissive. I'm probably going to have to work late nights. All of this stuff. You kind of walk into it accepting it. So you kind of don't know always when the line has been crossed. This isn't like starting a job and it's just a regular normal job, and then all of a sudden at random you're getting cursed out in the middle of Burger King in front of all the customers. Like, okay, whoa, this is way too much. Right. If you're getting threatened on the first day of your job, it's like, and you're being a personal assistant. Everyone knows personal assistant stories. That's why I bring up the Devil Loves Prada, is because it's such a known fact that happens, and that's a trend in that lifestyle of being a personal assistant, that they had a whole movie about it. Right. is the core basis of the whole movie. So I'm saying all that to say, when you're looking at Capricorn Clark and it's like, why'd you stay? You don't know when the end is there. You don't know when that last time was just the last time. It's like, oh well, he kind of went crazy that other day, but he was drunk. It was a New Year's Eve party. They already told me he gets like that. You move on. The next time, oh well, it was Grammy night and he didn't win and he was mad at everybody. It wasn't personal to me, and you let that go. It's like you keep kind of just pushing things in the background until they build up so much that you're just like, okay, wait, maybe this is.
I don't know. If you threaten me on day one, and you tell me that you might have to kill me, and you don't laugh afterwards, like, no, this is not where I belong. We starting out with murder on day one, not like you throwing a drink at me or you saying your mama, like you threatening me with murder on day one. Absolutely not.
But what you're doing is you're taking away the point that you just made. You said we're saying what's quiet out loud is that these people really want to be in this industry. And so I'm saying for that mentality, same way as you hear somebody say, oh, when you go to the military, you'll have somebody, making you jump in a cold river and they'll be yelling at you and cursing. So a lot of people are like, absolutely not. I'm not doing that. Yeah. But the people that accept it, they're like, I get it. Yeah. It's a part of it.
And she had been fired multiple times and then rehired multiple times, each time with a different title. And the defense asked her, why'd you entertain going back? Right. And she said, I wanted my life back. She said she was blackballed from the industry because of him. And she said she had an autistic son to take care of. And so she was like, I got to do what I got to do.
That part. These people have personal lives. So. And whether they want to talk about it or not, I know people minimize it because we're more focused on the trauma that they dealt with. $125,000 just to be somebody's assistant ain't nothing to sneeze at, especially you got a kid to take care of. Yeah. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying sometimes looking into, the color of the situation allows you to kind of get a feeling for, well, maybe that person just felt like they had to deal with it. Yeah. They got to do what they got to do.
Okay, so day 11.
Day 11.
So day 11 was when we heard from the LAPD officer who talked about the Black Escalade. We also heard from a fire department arson investigator, again, arson, part of RICO elements, who talked about the Molotov cocktail that brought into Kid Cudi's car. It was a Molotov cocktail made with Old English. We throwing Molotov cocktails with OE. Okay, Old English 800. But he also interestingly said that the cloth that was placed into the glass container, he said it was a designer type handkerchief. And he could tell that based on its, quote, fancy lines and, quote, silky type material. So again, this is from somebody that had some money. This is from Diddy and his camp. They put this whole thing together from some stuff that was in the back of Diddy's closet. But so also, like you talked about with the guy from the band who said he has the money to do all of these things. Right. Allegedly, there were some fingerprints and some additional evidence that were found in and around the arson scene at Kid Cudi's house. And that evidence went poof. And so the prosecution had asked a question about the destruction of the fingerprint cards from the fingerprints that were collected from Kid Cudi's car. And the defense moved for a mistrial, saying that the prosecution's question about the destruction of evidence was overly prejudicial because it could implant a thought in the jury's mind that Diddy paid for the destruction of evidence. Right. Now, again, is it likely? Maybe. Is it possible? Absolutely. Absolutely. And even if it weren't for paying for evidence, it could be my influence has convinced you to destroy evidence.
This is true.
Everybody knows who I am.
Yeah.
I can make sure that everybody knows who you are.
Yeah. It's a big thing.
It's a Do you choose your own life and safety and career, or do you try to throw Diddy in the clink?
Right. What would you do?
I don't know. That's a tough question. If somebody was threatening I don't know that I would do it for money. If someone offered me a large sum of money, I don't know if I would do it. But if someone were threatening my family, saying if I didn't get rid of some evidence that we hope nobody finds out about, would I do it? I don't know. I don't know, if I'm honest.
And see that, but that's valid. I think a lot of people, we all should, in any trial, not just this, like sometimes take a moment to understand both sides. Like just to understand it. I don't mean you gotta lean one way or the other.
Yeah.
But to at least put yourself in it to say like, okay, yeah, me sitting on my couch listening to this trial, I feel like this. But if I'm literally in that space, if I'm that person dealing with those circumstances, what would I do?
Right.
And that's not saying whether you're gonna say they're innocent or guilty because of how you would, what you would do, but at least you get a little deeper into the trial, into the people, and you can kind of understand it more.
Right.
Yeah.
So also on day 11, we hear from Deonte Nash. Deonte Nash has been referred to by a ton of folks that were in the courtroom as kind of like a breath of fresh air. He was the comedic relief that a lot of folks needed in the courtroom.
He really was.
He was a hairstylist who was very close to Cassie. He styled Cassie and Diddy.
And a lot of other celebrities.
Yes. And so, but he was very funny, very charismatic. Flamboyant, dare I say. But he talked a lot about the treatment that he saw from Diddy to Cassie. He talked about seeing him being violent with her on numerous occasions. He talked about this one time where Cassie was packing for a trip in 2013, 2014, and Diddy yelled at Cassie for not answering the phone. And in her presence, he grabbed her by the hair, pulling her off the couch, and he started hitting her. And then Deonte Nash said that he and another assistant tried to stop him. So this is one of the first times that we hear of anyone fighting back.
Right.
Finally, some folks are stepping in on Cassie's behalf and saying, hold on, you ain't just gonna go upside homegirl's head like that. We're not gonna just stand here and watch you just be abusive.
Yeah, like I don't care who you are.
I don't know how many times they tried to intervene, because it does sound like Diddy and Cassie's relationship over a 10, 11 year period, it was violence all the time, it sounds like. So I don't know how many times this assistant and Deonte Nash tried to step in. But on this one occasion, they said, pump the brakes. Hold up.
And I'm going to be honest, it's like, as much as, let's say that's my homegirl, right? And I'm around her and this dude, and that happens.
Yeah.
I jump on him. There's a whole scuffle, blah, blah, blah. The next day, I hit her up. You all right? Yeah, me and him, we out doing it. Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. And I'm like, all right, whatever. Maybe it's just then a few months later, I see him again. It happens again. Hey, girl, man, that was crazy last night. You all right? Yeah, I'm going to call you back. I don't want to wake him up. He's asleep.
Right. I'm not going to keep.
How many times am I going to do this?
I'm not going to keep putting myself in harm's way if you're going to keep running back to the person that keeps going upside your head. Absolutely.
So I'm like, I agree with you, like, on the not knowing how many times, because it's like that's the only time they spoke of.
Right.
So I will not be mad if he were to say that was it. Like, I mean, that's my girl, but I mean, I'm not. Maybe he won't kill you, but he might kill me.
Right. It is a very. It sounds like it was a very intense and very sensitive circle.
Yeah.
It sounds like everyone was always walking on eggshells, because they just never knew what kind of mood he was going to be in from one moment to the next. Right. So I could see someone not really being willing to continue to jump into the fire.
Right.
If she's going to.
Exactly.
Be willing to accept. Okay, so there was another instance that Deonte Nash talked about in 2014 where Cassie had her hair down at a party, and Combs grabbed Deonte Nash by the back of his jacket and said that Cassie needed to wear her hair up. So Deonte Nash had to go around to all of the party guests collecting hairpins and then take Cassie in the bathroom to put her hair up. How embarrassing. That's
How
like your mom coming up to your school when you in high school, like, come here, boo, you got some, like, don't do that. I'm already at the party. I'm already dressed. My hair is what it is.
It is
We
what
ain't
it
doing
is.
this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Deonte said that Diddy frequently called Cassie a H word, a S word, and a B word.
Huh.
Frequently. But the B word was his
insult
go-to of preference.
Oh, that was the one.
Yeah.
It was like B word, aka Cassie.
Yeah. So we also heard Deonte kind of start name dropping some folks, one of which was Michael B. Jordan. He said that he was trying to hook Cassie up with Michael B. Jordan. Because, again, Cassie and Diddy had broken up at the time.
Yeah.
And Deonte was like, if he's doing his thing, you can do your thing too.
Right.
That never materialized. But he tried.
Did he say something like, because he fine and she fine or something like that? Did you hear that?
I didn't hear that. But
I mean,
that sounds like something Deonte would say.
He was like, because he fine and she fine, so.
Yeah, there was some football player that Cassie was allegedly dating, and they were asking, the prosecution was asking Deonte about the football player and referenced him by name. And he was saying, I don't know who that is. And then he said, oh, was that the cute football player? And then, of course, the entire courtroom erupted in laughter. But again, that's the comic relief that Deonte brought during his testimony.
The last week ended with the comedic relief of Cudi, because like his energy definitely like kind of softened going into the weekend, softened the the people in the courthouse, and then Deonte started the week off. Not started. It's like Tuesday?
Yeah, he was the second day.
So it's like Wednesday. So it's like midweek. You need that,
right?
You need
especially with the testimony that followed.
And I said this in the week, the recap from last week. It's like, I feel like when those people are able to kind of like make people laugh, laughter is so infectious, and it touches you in such a deep place that I believe that since those, at least so far, those witnesses have been, very credible in what they brought to the stand. I think that it makes it stick even more. You see what I'm saying? Because now it's almost like a personal bond when somebody makes you laugh. So now you like, and they seem trustworthy. Like, oh yeah, I believe. Like, so I feel like that's gonna hold up when they go to deliberate. Like they're gonna remember. Yeah, that does something.
Yeah. Okay, so day 12. Day 12, we hear from Mia. So Mia is one of Diddy's former personal assistants. Mia is a pseudonym. We do not know who Mia is.
Some people say they know.
I hope that the folks who do know or claim to know do not reveal her identity. She dealt with a lot of things, allegedly.
Do you know?
At the hands of Diddy, and she just doesn't want to kind of have to go through this all over again after having had to testify about it for multiple days.
And I didn't know they had basically it's like a protection order,
right?
Because
for
she's
sexual assault victims,
right?
Yeah,
that's great, right?
It is.
That's really great. Even though she still had to come to the courthouse, and because then that's Diddy's right to be able to face his accuser,
right?
But so she still has to come there and like sit in front of this person for hours and hours that did these things to her. But at least she has some protection from the public.
And speaking of sitting, in front of him, the folks that were in the courtroom said that she didn't even look at him. She didn't look in his direction. Pretty much the entire time that she testified on both days. She testified with her head down. She had her bangs kind of covering up her face. They said that she was very soft-spoken, very meek, very nervous. She was very emotional. And when asked if Diddy looked at her, I did hear reports that he was very attentive. He did look at her. They didn't say what his demeanor was like, but they did say that he was looking in his direction as opposed to looking down or looking elsewhere. Okay, so Mia says that he assaulted her multiple times. Physically and sexually. He threw her into a swimming pool before. He dumped a bucket of ice on her before.
Was it the ALS challenge?
It was not.
Okay.
That's not funny.
I'm not trying to be. I'm just asking. Context matters. Like these are big allegations. I think it's fair. You know what I'm saying? To like dig in and ask another question. So a lot of people had ice thrown on them in this time frame with the
Willingly
ALS
though. This was assault.
You're right.
He also slammed her arm in a door multiple times, and she said the first time he slammed it, she thought that it was an accident, and then he continued slamming the door on her arm. So as far as the beginning of the sexual assault goes, his 40th birthday in 2009, she says he put his hand up her dress and forcibly kissed her. In the kitchen, he forced her to perform oral sex on him while she helped him to pack for a trip. He R-worded her in a guest bedroom that she was staying in his LA home. And she said that he told all of his assistants, interestingly, not the security guards, but all of his other assistants, that they could not lock the doors. He said, "It's my house.
Yeah.
Can't nobody lock no doors in my house."
Yeah, but then Mia was saying, but the security guards
had locks on their doors.
Yeah, like one of them had like a deadbolt, another one had like a keypad.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
can we have locks or not?
Depends on who you are, apparently.
He wasn't trying to touch on a security guard. That's what it is.
Right.
That's what it is.
But she said, that they couldn't tell him no about anything. They were afraid of him. And again, talking about his moods being random and sporadic. And she also said that in a lot of the times where he sexually assaulted her, she kept feeling like, this is so random. This is probably the last time. I don't know where this is coming from, but because it was so random, it's probably not going to happen again. And then it happened again. But again, to our previous conversation, how many more times are you going to wait and see if it's going to happen again? Is the first time not enough?
And hindsight is like, well, because it was random, should make you think, oh, this can happen at any time.
Right.
This is probably not the last time. It's not like this whole chaotic thing happened. It was this tension and then it happened. It's like, it was random. Right. But in the moment, and what we're also not saying is a lot of these people, not that they just want to be in the industry, but to even look at it from a higher view, is like, this is their dream. This is their goal. This is they might feel like their purpose to be in this industry for whatever they want to bring to this industry.
Right.
And so you probably spend more time coming up with excuses and reasons for why it was not that bad than for why it is that bad. No different than, I know this is not physical assault, but just like we hear about people that have like terrible record contracts. Oh, they're taking all of your publishing. They're taking all your royalties. Oh, you only get this. They own you for the next 10 years. Okay. People are accepting all of that because they're like, well, at least I'm in it.
Yeah, getting my foot in the door.
At least I'm in it. Yeah. Because this little 15% they giving me of the $500 million that was made is way better than 100% of the street money that I could be getting.
Right.
So,
right.
No justification. Again, just trying to read between the lines, I guess, a little bit.
Right. And so the testimony from Deonte, where he talks about he and an assistant trying to stop Diddy from one of the times that he was being physically violent with Cassie, Mia is that personal assistant. Yeah. So she said that in that encounter, she jumped on his back to try to keep him from hitting Cassie, and he threw her into a wall. So at this point, Diddy is so upset, so irate, and assumingly high off of whatever, that he's not only fighting Cassie, but he's also fighting the assistant at the time, and he's fighting the hairstylist. So he's fighting 3 people because he's so upset about Cassie's hair being down instead of being worn up.
I hate to say it because, but it is what it is. Like, people like him, especially when I say people like him, alleged women abusers, it seems like they always pick who they fighting.
Right.
it's like, yeah, he's fighting 3 people, but look at the 3 people. I mean, I'm not knocking Deonte or anything like that. However, I will say that a man who's a stylist is likely not as aggressive as a man who's like a bodyguard, right? Just by nature.
And I think that I would say that goes even further than just men who hit women, because think about the Will Smith Chris Rock situation. A lot of people said, yeah, Will Smith will walk up on Chris Rock because Chris Rock is my size, but he's not walking up on Tiny Lister, rest in peace, you know,
or The Rock,
right. He ain't walking up on Mike Tyson,
right.
So yeah, you know, crazy people are only so crazy, and I use the term crazy loosely. No disrespect to anyone who's dealing with any mental health issues or anyone with any serious disabilities, but when you nut up, you know you're only gonna go so far.
Right.
That little bit of self-preservation kicks in at the last minute. You ready to raise your hand to Mike Tyson and put that hand right back in your pocket because you know better.
Right. You was getting up out the seat, looked up again, was like, girl, you better take that joke.
Exactly.
That was pretty funny.
Exactly. And again, why the security guards are able to have locks on their doors and other people are not.
Right.
So in another situation, Mia described Diddy throwing a computer at her. They were on the set of a show or a movie or something like that, and the Wi-Fi was terrible. He sent her to go figure out the issues. She came back to him basically telling him she didn't know, there was nothing that she could do. They were working on a problem, and he threw the computer at her.
Goodness.
I was like, what is she supposed to do?
Goodness.
She is not the internet repairman.
A computer, though. It's like a Mac Mini or like a Dell Tower.
I'm going to assume since they were on set somewhere, it was a MacBook or something.
Something smaller.
Something.
But still, you can get more velocity out of it. Like, my range is better throwing a Mac Mini at you than a Dell Tower.
Right. She talked about what it was like being his assistant. She said she always had to be in his line of sight or within arm's reach. There was a time where she had to stay awake for 5 days because he just kept making demands of her, and she had to be there round the clock. And she said she stayed awake on Adderall and ADHD medication until she eventually had like this emotional breakdown, and she was crying and she was extremely frustrated, and only then did he allow her to go and get some rest. Imagine being awake for 5 days. I can't be awake for a full 24 hours without starting to lose my wits. She said that she eventually started to slur her speech. She started to lose her hearing over the course of that 5 days. Your body needs rest.
But you know, I'm actually like amazed that Diddy did all the stuff that he did. I'm not talking about to his assistant. I'm talking about in his professional life. Like, prior to this, we've always looked at Diddy as like one of the highest achieving, entrepreneurs or professionals that there is, right? Like one of the most highly decorated. He got restaurants, he got alcohol, he got clothing lines, he got music label. I mean, he just got it all. But then your assistant, you can't perform well. So like, if you're my assistant, I'm saying all this basically to say these are like terrible decisions that he's making behind the scenes, but somehow he's incredibly productive. So it's like, I got an assistant that I'm slamming her arm into the door over and over, but she takes my notes. She goes and gets things for me. She helps me pack suitcases. I have her staying up, god awful amounts of time, but I need her to remember this, and this for me, and execute this, and call this person, and be like the face for me when I'm not there. It's like, how does that work? You would think that a person that has achieved what he's achieved is like pristine behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Like, and his whole team is just completely locked into success for them to get to that place. But no, it's like, it's a mess. It's a zoo in the background. Yet in the front, it's like, I mean, you could argue, and like, especially if you just take hip hop careers in the past 30 years, you'd have to put Puff at like top 5.
Yeah.
Puff, Jay, Snoop.
But you hear
Yay,
about even outside of hip hop, because not too much on us, but you hear about these extreme high achievers, and then many years, even decades after the peak of their success, you hear about what the people in their inner circle had to go through.
Right.
You hear about all of the sleepless nights and all of the abuse, and all of the people that they took advantage of in their rise to the top. So it's not, of course, I'm not making excuses for Diddy or justifying his actions because other people did it.
Right.
But it's not just a Diddy thing. It's not just a hip hop thing. It's a control thing. It's a power thing. It's a greed thing.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about this plenty of times before. It seems like a lot of the folks who make it to that point, they all have a chip on their shoulder in some
all of them.
kind of way. They all have something that they are either running from, trying to overcome.
Yeah. And birds of a feather flock together. Because they've been saying that, like, before this trial started, a lot of the conversation was, is this just Diddy or was this learned behavior?
Yeah.
Was this being around other industry elites? I even heard about...
And his mother.
I was about to say, his mom having crazy stuff going on in the house. It's like, where did this come from?
Right.
What's the core?
Right.
And real quick before you keep going, so just so we can kind of keep coming back to the charges, just so people understand, we're not just talking about a terrible assistant experience. How does this lend to the charges? What charge would this connect to? You see what I'm saying?
Well, I think with Mia, she was able to corroborate some of prior witnesses' testimony about kidnapping. Of course, she talked about her involvement in setting up rooms or arranging rooms. She talked about times where he wouldn't let Cassie leave. Again, the kidnapping, herself being kidnapped or held against her will. So I think her being the personal assistant, the core of her testimony was that she was able to, again, speak to some of these other elements and what she witnessed firsthand.
Okay. So she's just substantiating the other claims that are more connected to the charges.
Right. But again, the kidnapping or being held against her will, she talked about a situation where Cassie wanted to go to a party at Prince's house. This was New Year's Eve. Diddy said that he was going to be with his kids, so he wasn't even around. Finds out that Cassie and Mia go to this party at Prince's house, and he shows up at the party. And they were so afraid of him and what he would do after finding out that they were somewhere that he told them that they could not be, that they ran outside and jumped in the bushes. Mia took off running. Diddy catches Cassie and forces them to go back to a hotel room and stay there. They could not leave without his permission.
That's like escaped convicts. They find you in the bushes, 4 miles away from the jail. Get in the car and take you back.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
I saw about the testimony that she, what she was saying, that she was going through so much stress that she actually had some like stress-based illness and her hair was falling out. You heard about that?
I didn't.
Yeah, this was, I think, it was either towards the back end or afterwards, but she was saying she suffered from, she didn't say what illness, she just said a stress-based illness, and she had like a lot of her hair falling out. I mean, I guess that connects to the other things you talked about that she dealt with while she was there.
Yeah. She talked about, and this goes to the witness tampering element of RICO. She talked about starting to hear from Diddy and one of his bodyguards, D-Rock, after Cassie filed her lawsuit in November of 2023, which she ultimately settled with Diddy within 24 hours. D-Rock, she had a great relationship with him during her employment with Bad Boy Enterprises. So she was initially happy to hear from him or after November 2023.
Yeah.
Only to learn that he was reaching out to her to try to get Mia to start saying things that would paint Diddy in a favorable light. And so she said that she felt terrified and threatened and scared and nervous, and she wanted to play dumb about everything that she had been hearing because she didn't want her life to be in danger. D-Rock was asking her, had she reached out to him? D-Rock told Mia that Diddy was trying to get in contact with her, and she lied to him on one occasion and said, oh, I tried to call him, but he didn't answer. So she didn't want to be involved. She had put this behind her. She said that all of this that had went on between her and Diddy and all of the things that she had seen, she said that she was going to die with it. She was going to take it all to her grave. She didn't want to talk about it. She didn't want to bring it up.
But her and Cassie's still cool, right?
Her and Cassie are still friends, yes. But, you know, they were kind of in the trauma trenches together.
Yeah.
So she had no reason to bring it up, and now
just more of like they're basically trying to spin all of the Cassie narratives in this other way, that it wasn't that bad. It feels like it, but if you and Cassie are like still, you know, good friends, then how can you just stay quiet? You know what I mean? Like maybe you don't want to do what they're doing, but how are you not standing on her side?
Well, I think because it then resurfaces a lot of your own stuff. I mean, to try to have somebody else's back, trying to speak out in support of Cassie doesn't do anything positive for Mia. It benefits Cassie, sure,
yeah,
but I think it's going to have more of a negative impact on her own life than a positive impact on initially what would have just been Cassie's civil lawsuit.
Yeah.
Because Cassie was not at the forefront of these federal charges.
Right.
Cassie filed a civil lawsuit after settlement negotiations failed between her and Diddy's team.
Right.
So all of this that's happening right now, Cassie didn't ask for that. She wanted her coins. And then because Diddy and his defense team decided not to settle when they should have, here comes a civil lawsuit that now everybody's jaws are on the floor, and now you have the feds' attention. So now the feds want to talk to everybody.
That what was that? 24 hours.
24 hours.
That 24 hours changed his life.
His life, the lives of all of the people who were around him, his family. Yeah.
We might do a video to break that down so people understand that more. Because I've heard people asking like, well, why can't we have cameras, and why aren't they talking about this, and why aren't they talking about that? And it's like, I think there's a misunderstanding of the federal trial that we are witnessing now and the civil suit that happened with Diddy and Cassie.
Right.
And those are two completely different things. They are not tied to each other at all, except for the fact that some of the evidence and the storylines of the civil trial made their way into the federal trial because Cassie is the witness. But
again, I think it speaks to the personality that is Diddy, feeling like I am untouchable. Yeah. I do what I want to do. You trying to get money out of me and I don't want to pay it. So go pound sand. And Cassie said, I ain't the one to play with.
Right.
At the end of the day.
And you should know I'm not. You should know I'm not.
And I think that he felt like the dirt that I have on you is so bad that you are not willing to go public. You are not willing to humiliate yourself to try to get some money out of me. And she said, you bet I am. I absolutely am. Because at this point, I've dealt with it. I've processed my trauma. So,
yeah,
what you gonna do?
What I got to lose.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
And people like that, it's just, I'm proud of her and anybody that brings these kind of suits to life, because it's like, they shouldn't get away with it.
Right.
Like things that are done in the dark have to come to light. Like some of Mia's testimony about the violence with Cassie. I mean, even when she was talking about they were in Turks and Caicos, and Cassie came screaming, talking about Diddy's gonna kill me. Diddy's gonna kill me. And they jumped on paddle boards and went out into the ocean.
In a storm.
In a storm.
In a storm. They said that they would rather deal with the forces of nature than to deal with the storm that was Diddy on that boat.
Do you know how wild that has to be? I don't know if y'all have been in the Caribbean before, but them storms, because, obviously there's no mountains and all that. So when a storm is coming, you see all of it. You see the entire sky looking angry. So imagine looking at that and then looking back and seeing Diddy's face angry, and you're like, I don't know. I think I'm
having to decide which one is worse in itself is wild.
Crazy.
That's wild. So kind of wrapping up Mia's testimony from Friday, the defense started their cross-examination of her, and they pulled a lot of her text messages between her and Diddy and her and a lot of the other staff, specifically the executive assistant staff. And in a lot of her text messages, I believe she said that she signed all of her text messages with "love you." So even after having been sexually assaulted by him on multiple occasions and been beaten up by him, she would still sign her text messages to him, "love you."
Yeah.
And to which he would reply, "love you too."
Yeah.
And a lot of her social media posts, she posted tons of photos of her and the staff and Diddy out and about, referencing him with extremely high regard, talking about him as a legend and a pioneer and all of these things.
Our mentor, our inspiration.
Yeah, exactly. And so the defense asked her, how could you say all of these amazing things about someone who you allege sexually assaulted you, slammed your arm in the door, threw you up against the wall? How do you have such reverence?
How is he still your, what you call him? Your unicorn?
Mm-hmm.
Rock star unicorn?
Yep.
How is he still your rock star unicorn?
Yep.
After all this?
Yeah.
People break up and delete 100 pictures from Facebook that they had with someone the next day.
Yep.
You done went through strife with this guy.
Right.
It's a great point. It's a great point.
When she was fired from Bad Boy Enterprises, for what reason, I'm not sure, she sent a text message to KK, one of Diddy's other executive assistants, saying, "I'm going to kill myself. My life is over." And so the defense is asking her, wouldn't you have considered this a relief? You are finally free from the terror that is your employment with Diddy. And she said, but like you said, this was my dream.
That's it.
This was my dream. I consider these people my family. This was everything that I had worked for. So I felt like I didn't have anything else to live for. She said now she looks at it as a blessing. But at the time, she didn't.
Yeah, she's brainwashed.
Right.
She's brainwashed at the time. It's no different than the slaves. I mean, you've been a slave for generations. You were born a slave, and now all of a sudden they're like, you're free. Like, all right, cool. So can I put in an application? Like, I don't know what else to do.
Right.
This is all I know.
Right.
So I'd rather be here, which some slaves did. They stayed. Like, I'll just, they got paid different. They could leave and all that. But it's hard to put your mind in that place. But when someone is a prisoner mentally, that's a whole nother, it ain't like letting somebody out of a physical prison.
Right.
Very different.
Right.
Do you have any idea why they didn't have Nicole Westmoreland do the cross with Maya? They had Brian Steele. Because, sometimes they'll try to use the woman, especially for somebody like Maya, who is using a pseudonym. She's looking down and staring at her head. Like, why did they put such an aggressive defense attorney, the lead defense attorney, on her instead of using, Nicole is great as well, but.
Well, I think Mia was such a bombshell witness that it required someone with the level of expertise as Brian Steele. Again, Brian Steele was the lead defense attorney in the Young Thug RICO trial, which ultimately ended favorably for Young Thug. So I think with someone who was able to speak to the level of detail as Mia was, and the level of emotion and sympathy that I would assume she was able to elicit from the jury.
Yeah.
I think that they didn't really have a choice but to pair her cross-examination with a bulldog as Brian Steele. I would assume, again, there are no cameras in the courtroom, so I can't confirm how he spoke to her. I would assume he wasn't aggressive with her, but I think that he didn't give her a lot of opportunity to wiggle out of some questions that maybe someone softer would have allowed her to do.
Right. All right, y'all. I think that is it. Week 3 recap of the Diddy trial. I hope you got your ears worth. I hope you are locked into it. This is, again, an unprecedented moment in hip-hop. We thank you for paying attention to it because it is important. Every voice in that courtroom is important. I am Cashmere, California. This is, again, the beautiful Mrs. California. And we will see y'all on the next one.